Good evening and welcome to the February 11th Bloomington Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission advises the City Council on development standards, development proposals, long-range planning, and transportation issues. Some items the Planning Commission has final decision authority for, and others the City Council will make the decision. Planning Commission is made up of 7 volunteers that are appointed by the City Council and serve for up to 3 years at a time. Tonight we have 4 items scheduled on our agenda. But before we begin, we'll stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Tonight, before we begin, Mr. Markergard we'll review the protocol as standard under COVID-19 and social distancing. Mr. Markergard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, tonight is our 20th remote Planning Commission meeting due to the pandemic. We just have 2 people here in the chambers. All the other commissioners, staff, applicants, and the public will be testifying remotely, but we definitely can still accept public comment. So if you would like to comment, please give us a call at 1-888-742-5095 and enter the conference code you see on the screen. We'll have this scrolling across the screen throughout the meeting. Item 2 is a public hearing, but item 3 is a study item. And item 4 is a study item. And with that, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Markergard. So, again, before we start tonight, I'll just review the process for the Planning Commission. Normally, what we would do is have the planning staff review the application, and then after they complete their review, commissioners have an opportunity to ask staff questions. And then we would move to the applicant if there's any further discussion, and then open to public hearing. Typically during the public hearing, we'll give individuals 3 minutes to address the commission. And if there's others in line, then they may begin afterwards. And if there's more for an individual to speak to after everybody's had a chance, we'll allow them to continue for an additional 3 minutes. That being said, our first item tonight is a conditional use permit that was scheduled for Dairy Queen at 9304 Lindale Avenue. And the applicant on that one has requested a continuance until the March 11th Planning Commission for all actions associated with that item. So we will move forward to item number 2, which is a comprehensive plan amendment, I believe. Item number 2, Mr. Palermo, you have a staff report for us?
Mr. Chair, we should have a motion on the continuance.
Oh, okay. All right. I can go back to that. Commissioners, is there a motion to continue public hearing on item number 1? Commissioner Albrecht?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to continue case PL 20221-2 to the March 11th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Albrecht. Commissioner Cook done?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue Planning Commission item Dairy Queen CUP 9304 Lindale Avenue until the March 11th Planning Commission meeting. Any further discussion? Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor say aye by roll call. Commissioner Goldsman?
Aye.
Commissioner Corman?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Aye.
Commissioner Albrecht?
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi?
Aye.
Commissioner Cookton?
Aye.
And aye for myself. Motion passes. That item will be continued till the March 11th Planning Commission meeting. Item number 2. All right. Can we go ahead and have the staff report, Mr. Palermo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, the mute button disappears when you go. All right. So tonight we're here for comprehensive plan text amendment. This is a privately initiated comprehensive plan amendment addressing some standards for our medium density residential guide plan designation. So to give you a little context of how this began, the applicant purchased the property at 4223 West Old Shakopee Road. There's an existing single-family home, and they were intending to subdivide it and put a second single-family home on there. It's zoned R1, so for low-density residential. However, as we got into the process, it turns out the property is guided medium-density residential. In the 1980 comprehensive plan, to give a little history, this area was guided for high-density residential, but in the 2000 comprehensive plan update, so 20 years later, it was revisited. This area was kind of highly studied, and it was reduced down to medium-density residential in hopes that this would spur some more development. The HRA at that time had started to doing some land banking in the area, and the thought is that maybe they would eventually get to this area and help with that redevelopment of this area. So the issue that came to be was because medium density residential guidance requires 5 units an acre or more. So our R1 zoning district wouldn't fit within our guide plan designation of medium density. 5 units per acre requires a maximum lot size of 8,712 square feet for a single family home to work. So you can imagine 5 homes together on an acre. However, our R1 zoning district has a minimum lot size of 11,000 square feet. So you can see there's about 3,000 square foot difference there. Our R1, if you are at that minimum lot size, ends up being about 3.96 units per acre. And I apologize if you hear some noises in the background. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so hopefully that's not bleeding through. So give you a little context, here's the applicant's property. It is on Old Shakopee Road, but it is a through lot. The intent was to subdivide it and have a lot on 108th Street and continue to have the house that faces Old Shakopee Road. The area, like I said, is zoned R1, so it is zoned for a single family home, but it's guided medium density residential. You can see we had some high density residential here to the east, and then we have 108th place, which was recently constructed, also meets our high density residential. And like I said, that was part of the HRA land banking and helping with that development. But you can see as you move from there, it is all single family homes along 108th Street and on the west side of the property as well. So it is single family in nature, and across the street is low density residential guided. So the proposed amendments that the applicant was proposing, we tweaked it a little bit. So it says this would be adding on to our description of what medium density is, and would say in locations where an existing or newly created lot is along. In this case, we said we're changing it to local street because that is in keeping with other language throughout the comp plan and our zoning code rather than neighborhood street. So where a newly created lot is along a local street and has single family dwelling on both sides of the lot, a single family home is, and in this case, we're proposing to change it to allowed at below 5 units per acre. So really getting at what the issue is. Staff is in support of this because of those narrow parameters. It really is tailored to kind of keep that neighborhood character in place. So being along the local street, we're not in conflict with what the medium density language says about trying to concentrate medium and high density multifamily along arterial collectors. we're saying if it's along a local street, which is where our single-family homes are, it is in keeping with neighborhood character. And then that having single-family homes on both sides really is ensuring that neighborhood character. So we're not, so it is not out of place. And then this is a unique situation. We looked for other situations that this would be applicable to, and none stood out. There wasn't a similar situation that we could readily find. Not to say that it doesn't exist, but again, those lots would be in that keeping with that neighborhood character. And the situation might arise in the future somehow. But all in all, it doesn't dilute the medium density residential intent much, if at all. It doesn't eliminate that ability to do that medium density in the future if someone were to purchase those lots and consolidate them. It still keeps that opportunity available. So it's not limiting the future so much, but it is addressing that need where there is a vacant situation that is developable, but not being developed for, as you can see, over 40 years. With that, I'll take any questions, and I have a motion on the screen, but I'll ask questions. And I believe the applicant is on the phone as well if you have any questions for her.
All right, thank you, Mr. Palermo. I'm going to start with a question. I just want to go back, and the current guidance is for medium density residential, and what you presented in the for us here on the PowerPoint was that all that language is new. Is that correct? For the single family, it isn't anything that exists anywhere.
Mr. Chair, I believe you're on mute.
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
Thank you. You can't tell because I'm wearing a mask.
Right. It kind of looked like you were, but I wasn't sure if my phone had dropped off or not.
All right, all the good technical issues here tonight. Mr. Palermo, just the question I have is the language that you presented in the, yep, right there for the proposed amendment, that's all new language that's being proposed. Is that correct?
That's correct. That would be, in addition, it would just be another paragraph in that section. So the medium density has a little description in the comp plan, and this would just be a secondary paragraph after that.
Okay, and I know we talk about this in various applications. What's the level of discretion that the Planning Commission has with this item? Is it a high level or a lower level?
In this case, so what do you mean by discretion? Will you be reviewing the?
I think Mr. Palermo or Mr. Markegard, really the question is just how much is guided by current standards, and how much does the Planning Commission really have the ability to determine what's appropriate or not?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in terms of a comprehensive plan amendment, that's kind of the highest level of discretion that the commission could have. So it's a legislative change rather than a quasi-judicial. So you have a very high level of discretion.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Any other questions from commission members for staff? Commissioner Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Palermo, can you, do you know the approximate size of the lot as it exists in square feet?
I believe, I want to say it's in the realm of 30,000 square feet. I could actually get you
No, that's
that
okay.
number.
It doesn't have to be exact.
It's
Mr. Markegard?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Roman,
It is
happen to have it right here. It's
32,000.
yeah, 32,067.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any additional questions, Commissioner Roman?
I think not right now. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Abdi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, and it's been a while since I read the report, so I'm just quickly reviewing it. My question is with the larger comp plan, and since the 40 for 2020 was adopted, Are there any plans to rezone the entire city, or is this just a quick fix for the need that currently exists right now? Or can you maybe explain a little bit about the potential rezoning that the city will be undertaking and what this means for that area? Are there going to be any conflict? And I'm sure you would not be recommending approval for something that would be conflicting with upcoming rezoning, but maybe can you foreshadow how this may or may not work with potential rezoning for the area? Thank you.
Right. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abdi, so we wouldn't be rezoning the property. So this would essentially, it would be saying that the zoning is in conformance. So we have a lot of flexibility in how our zoning districts fit within our land use guidelines or land use designations. And in this case, the zoning is in conflict. And this would say in certain situations, the zoning wouldn't be in conflict. So we wouldn't be rezoning. So there might be other areas in the city where there are medium density there are other areas that are medium density that have R1 zoning. And it might have the same unique situation, but we couldn't readily find that. It's hard to do that analysis to find. But it wouldn't necessarily be rezoning any properties. This would essentially be saying the zoning is okay, and this would allow that lower density because of that. That makes sense?
Yes, I apologize. And Mr. Chair, if I may.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Commissioner Abdi.
I apologize. I didn't read this closely, but I did. When I read it, it was not about my question when I was thinking it was really less about the rezoning, but it was more about the comp plan attached to the zoning, because a multifamily district, from my view, encourages multifamily uses. So my concern would have been if the site surrounding this area ends up being redeveloped for a multifamily. Are we going to have mismatched of uses in the area? Should we be preserving affordable, not necessarily affordable, should we be preserving multifamily uses for multifamily uses instead of encouraging more single family in a multifamily district? So I'm just a little bit conflicted about what that means for availability of that and the consistency of having uses be multifamily in a multifamily district, even though a single family is allowed in this district. My only concern is because the district is intended for multifamily, are we encouraging more single families to be allowed to continue to develop, even though it is allowed? So maybe that's just a potential larger conversation, but thank you for the clarification.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abdi, no, I understand what you're saying. And in this case, by creating that new lot, it doesn't necessarily prohibit. I mean, in this case, they're all single family lots, so there would be some compiling that would have to happen regardless. And whether they get all the lots or a few of those lots, that possibility still exists. And especially along Old Shakopee Road, which is where we kind of want to focus it on that arterial collector roadway, rather than facing on 108th Street, less so. But even though you put a new single family home on there, it still might be worth it for a developer to purchase that and compile it and redevelopment. It's hard to do that, which is part of why this area is kind of sat like this. But that potential does exist. And this, while it might limit it slightly, if someone was really wanting to do that, it wouldn't necessarily prohibit them from doing that.
Is that sufficient, Commissioner Abdi, or do you have additional questions?
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Goldsman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Actually, one of the questions I have is really around setting precedents. I've learned from Commissioner Roman that we want to make sure that we don't set precedents. So one of the questions that I have for you, Mr. Palermo, is you mentioned that you were reviewing other properties within the city and you didn't find any other situations that this would come up, that there was this kind of a unique situation. Can you elaborate on, are there other properties or other lots within the city that could potentially fall within the same character, just to understand what the precedents that we're setting for this change could be?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Goldsman, we looking at medium density. So this would only be applicable to medium density residentially guided land. And looking through that, we don't have a situation where we have, say, a large enough lot to subdivide. So that's the difficulty there. And then lots that are medium density and then also on a local road as such. You know, we tend to have those medium density on our local collector roads, thinking that they're more suitable for multifamily. This is kind of a unique situation with the way that Old Shakopee kind of runs through on an angle and local streets like that, that it creates this unique situation. I was kind of prefacing that you know, there could potentially be a lot somewhere that I missed because, you know, I'm visually scanning this. You're trying to look for those two frontages. But I don't see, we couldn't readily find that. There could be another situation where, you know, hypothetically in the future, there's a house that's in, you know, that is guided medium density that becomes blighted, gets torn down, and then has that maybe is quite a large lot in that 22,000 square feet. You know, we have single family homes that are on larger lots like that that could potentially then be subdivided in that situation. Or if maybe it doesn't need to be subdivided, but it is medium density, it's been over a year, it's no longer considered in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And this situation would allow them to put a single family home back there. You know, the likelihood of these cases are fairly, you know, rare and probably may not even happen again, but that potential does exist. So we want to make you aware that when we do this, we apply it. It is citywide to all medium density residential. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Goldsman, any further questions?
None at this time. Thanks.
All right. Commissioner Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did have one other question, and whoever on the staff may know this. After the 108th Place development, does the HRA, I don't think so, but do they own any additional parcels in this super block at all anymore?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Roman, I don't believe that they do, and I think they've they were for a while concentrated in this area. They worked on 108th Place and they helped, especially on the corners around France and Old Shakopee. But at this time, they stopped land banking and they don't own any land. And I don't think there's any immediate plans in the future for land banking, although it could always change.
Right. Thank you.
All right, commission members, any additional questions? Otherwise, we'll go to the applicant. Not seeing any further questions from commission members. Mr. Markegard, is the applicant available to speak to this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will unmute the applicant now.
Yes, this is Jill.
Good evening, Jill. Do you have any further comments for Planning Commission tonight?
Well, my intentions when I purchased the property was to split it immediately, and that was my one intent. And I'm remodeling the house on Old Shakopee, and then the intent was to split it and sell the lot separately for someone to build on. We actually have an interested builder to purchase it and build a single family residence. We just didn't know that this was a multifamily zone until December. I bought it back in October. So and then this is why we're going through this process with the text amendment.
All right, thank you.
When we first moved in, or we didn't move in, sorry. When we first purchased it, we started working on the house, and the adjacent properties to the east and the west of that lot, both residents came out and spoke to us and were making sure that we weren't putting up a duplex or multifamily. And so they were definitely on board with keeping it single family.
Okay, all right, that's good information. Commission members, any questions for the applicant? Not seeing any. Thank you, Ms. Fairchild, for your information tonight.
Thank you.
All right, now at this point, we'll open up public hearing. Mr. Markegard, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, nobody has pre-registered to speak, but let's check in with Mr. Pease.
Okay.
Mr. Pease, has anybody called in on this item?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pease. All right, commission members, seeing that there is nobody from the public that is ready to speak to this item at this time, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Commissioner Goldsman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second? Commissioner Roman?
Second.
All right, seeing that we have a motion before us to close the public hearing with a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye by roll call. Commissioner Goldsman?
Aye.
Commissioner Corman?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Aye.
Commissioner Albrecht?
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi?
Aye.
Commissioner Cookton?
Aye.
And aye for myself. Motion passes. Public hearing is now closed. All right. Discussion amongst commission members. I will start. This one puzzles me a little bit from the standpoint that we have guided the land use around this, and there has been quite a lot of work in the vicinity to reach that, and I think several of us were here when the last residential development went through, and understand that that was challenging in its own right. On the other hand, if I'm hearing staff correct, there's not really maybe a lot of parcels or maybe a lot of change that could take place by allowing this particular plan amendment. I'm very much on the fence at this point. I would be interested to hear what other commission members think at this. Commissioner Albrecht?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking, I'm just curious actually about the lot across the street, across West Old Shakopee. I believe that's a single family home along a local street. Would this then qualify for that? And maybe this is more of a question for staff, but I'm looking at, what is it, 4304? That is along what I would consider, Johnson Circle, a local street. Would that qualify? If they decided they were going to split that lot, would that also qualify? Maybe more of a question than anything.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, I think, to define maybe what that means between, what was the language between additional single-family homes. Mr. Markegard or Mr. Palermo, if you can maybe get to that in a little bit, we'll give you some time to look at that. Commissioner Roman, you have a question?
Oh, I was just gonna take a next whack at this, but I don't know if Commissioner Albrecht is done yet.
Okay. Commissioner Albrecht, other thoughts at this point while staff looks up maybe that answer to that question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my only thought, was what if the street is parallel versus streets on either side?
Okay. Commissioner Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am struggling with this one. The biggest thing I have a hard time with is modifying a comprehensive plan to deal with one specific property or one specific project. I think comprehensive plans are meant to be big and broad, and And I think we open ourselves up to challenges when we start turning the dials a little bit here and there to accommodate one thing in a document that's meant to be citywide. So that's my biggest thing. Do I have a problem with the idea of splitting this lot in half? No. Do I, you look at the map of what's around there, does it fit with what's there now? Yes. Was this area recently guided? No, it's been guided this way for decades. Could the applicant tear down the house and build a very large house if they wanted? Yes, it's guided, or it's zoned that way for residential. Did the guiding happen after the property owner purchased property? No. I understand that they were not aware of that, but that doesn't. We've had people request variances for awnings or porches or things, or things that were measured improperly 40 years ago that we have not granted, and so that for me doesn't quite reach there. So I guess what I have my bigger question is ultimately is this area still appropriately guided? And a bigger question is maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I too am wrestling with this. Like I said, I don't have a problem with the idea of this lot being split given what's around it, but I struggle more with the idea of what we're doing on a bigger scale with the plan.
Good points. Thank you, Commissioner Roman. Commissioner Goldsman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I looked at when I read through the packet was the properties that are around it, and I'm kind of on the fence as well, but it looks like this is the only lot that has not been subdivided. So when you look at all of the other properties around it, there are 2 lots. And so it just seemed like this was a really, unique situation because it is one large lot versus the 2. And if I look at the others, they are subdivided into 2 lots from Old Shakopee to 108th. So I'm just saying, like, that's kind of what my reaction was, is this seems strange that it wasn't subdivided. Not to say I could go either way, or, the medium density piece side, I meant by that. So not putting my opinion out there quite yet, but it just seemed
Right.
kind of strange that it wasn't subdivided to begin with.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Goldsman. Commissioner Cookton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I reviewed this application, I, just like my other commissioners, was a bit torn, and it's hard to make. Well, there's a lot of different factors here, and I think the thing that holds me back is sort of Commissioner Roman's point about what, not necessarily setting a precedent at this particular location, but it's more of a precedent of how we're modifying and how we're treating the comprehensive plan. But as I was reviewing the application, a few things made me comfortable with leaning towards supporting this application. For one, I appreciate staff taking the effort to look at where else this could be applicable, if this has a large ripple effect or not, and we're hearing that we believe it does not. And so that makes me feel more comfortable that we're not setting a precedent for other lots in our city. So I like that. And then I looked at, the surrounding uses and looking at it on all, I believe there's, essentially 5 surrounding properties, 2 on the west, 2 on the east, 1 to the south. They're all single family homes. And so when you talk about fit, a single family home certainly is a good fit for today's usage. And so that too makes me feel more comfortable about it. And so when I think about that, I think about, the comprehensive plan, and, that's going through the Metropolitan Council, who has a lot of cities underneath it, and they are not able to necessarily take a look on the small scale. And I feel like that's our role as the planning commission of this particular city, that we have enough attention to what's happening locally to see this lot in particular as its own single application. And by that, I think it's our opportunity here to not get in the way of a practical development. I think this application makes sense. I think it fits with the city. I don't think we're getting in anybody's way. And I think that's our opportunity as a local government to take a look at this as its own application and see that it makes sense, and not let a large document, which I'm not negating the importance of our comprehensive plan by any means. It's valid and important. What my point is that we have an opportunity as the 7 of us to take a look at this as an individual application and see that it makes sense, and not turn it away because of a large document that's guiding our entire city. And we have an opportunity to say this particular application makes sense. It's not negatively affecting or setting a precedence that we're not going to like elsewhere. And we can allow development that to me makes sense. And so I could still be convinced otherwise. I feel fairly comfortable supporting this application.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Cookton. Appreciate your comments as we look through this. And I myself am reminded to look back in the staff report to think about a couple of things. Staff had evaluated, again, that citywide land guided medium density. One of the comments made is that without the proposed change, the reconstruction would be inconsistent with the comp plan for medium density, where essentially if there was a home that was demolished or blighted within the city and nothing was reconstructed within a year, it would allow that to take place, so that it could meet the comp plan. So trying to put this in perspective with, quite honestly, a lot of unemployment, economy where it is, and what that means for our city as a whole. I still don't know that this gets me one side or the other on this particular issue, but just trying to think of that larger, broad scale issue, rather than thinking, because certainly I don't think anybody argues that a single family home in the neighborhood makes sense, but I think it's about the larger plan that the city has. I still believe that that's an important piece of what we're talking about here, and much to why I asked about what's our level of impact as a planning commission on this particular item. So maybe that just confused the issue for more people. I'm not sure. I kind of figured this was going to take a while to discuss. So any other thoughts from commission members? Commissioner Abdi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like Commissioner Roman said, I personally do not have, I do see the consistency, like Commissioner Cookton also mentioned, the uses that are surrounding it. I guess what I'm looking for is maybe, it's not clicking for me about the larger context of what this would mean. I know this would only resolve for this one property, and we don't know what else would be coming for it, what it would mean for other possible lots that would be coming to request. I'm not clear, I'm sorry. I guess the question maybe we can ask I can ask for clarification is, does this, I know the ordinance does not talk about whether the new lots would meet minimum lot sizes. I know that I see an 8,700 square foot and 1,100 square foot. Would this possibly create any non-conforming lot sizes for other existing structures? Or would this come back to us for a different, if a permit were required for a new construction, would this come back to the Planning Commission for a redevelopment review for any new projects? Because after the subdivision, it would trigger new applications for new construction.
Commissioner Abdi, I think, and I'll look over to Mr. Markegard as I begin to answer this, but I think because the size is 32,000 square feet for that current lot, that as long as they kept it above that R1 minimum lot size of 11,000, then I don't know what would actions before any planning commission, would there be any? Mr. Markegard?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Abdi. The item that would come before the Planning Commission is a replat. So they would be subdividing one lot into two, and that does come before the Planning Commission.
And Mr. Markegard, just thinking about this a little bit, and if I'm understanding Commissioner Abdi a little bit, part of the question is, I guess that's now come, that I'm thinking is, a medium density or a landowner that is somehow now developed or purchased 4 or 5 lots in this area, so medium density, and proposes a medium density 5 units per acre development. One of the findings is it has to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan, correct? And so they would be, would not have to overcome that, is my understanding. But trying to think about this a little bit, if this were guided as low density and they came in with a medium density, it would not be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Is that also correct?
Right.
Or,
yeah, Mr. Chairman, in this case, we have zoning and guiding that are a little bit out of sync. In terms of the guiding would tend to take it towards the townhomes or something similar, whereas the zoning is more single family in nature. So if a developer were to come forward, let's say combine several of these lots, want to do a townhome proposal, they would likely request rezoning, say to the R3 district, which would then match up with the guide plan designation. So this change tonight doesn't slow that down or negatively impact that kind of scenario at all. It just does open the door for this interim one lot approach.
yeah, I guess the second part of that, Mr. Markegard, was a thought of where it would not be, a development would not be cohesive with the way it's guided. So a new development, thinking about this, and I'm just trying to think that all what things are guided. High density, let's say it's guided high density and they were, it was zoned something different, but they wanted to do low density development instead. My understanding is then we're looking for that where that's supportive of the comprehensive plan when we do those. And is that, or am I correct, or am I just off on a tangent here?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
well, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but there are some limiting criteria with this change that would lower the scope. And maybe Mr. Palermo, if you kind of scroll back to that slide, specifically it has to be on a local street, and there has to be single-family dwellings on both sides of the lot. So that really narrows the scope of this particular amendment.
No, I understand that. I was thinking more on a broader scale of just developments that come before us without thinking about this, just trying to get the context correct for myself as much as anybody else. But would this, I guess a question, thinking about this as well, because it was brought up by Commissioner Albrecht, is there an answer to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Albrecht, just to repeat the question, I believe it was, would the property at 4304 Johnson be able to take advantage of this amendment and subdivide? And we've looked at this really quickly here. There's a couple barriers. One is the depth of the lot. And not only is the depth already fairly shallow in terms of lot depth, but additional right-of-way is needed on Johnson Avenue. So that's one barrier. The other barrier is there are a couple structures right in the middle of the lot. So depending on how somebody wanted to subdivide it, it may require removal of the structures. So it could be that, especially with removal of the structures, that it may meet the minimum lot sizes, but it may result in lots that are substandard or are not practically developable due to lot depth. Although to answer that in detail, we'd need to spend more time looking at it.
Then for me, I guess the bigger question, Mr. Markgard, would be this, a corner lot, to use an example, that was large and had the setbacks and everything. The residents, single-family homes on both the local street and maybe an arterial, that would meet the intent of the change, as long as there were single-family homes on both sides.
Yes, Mr. Chair, you bring up another point that this would not qualify because there are not single-family homes on both sides.
Sure. Okay.
So somehow you would need to perhaps remove the garage and create a lot to the north in this particular case. But Johnson in this location is a local street, so that qualifies.
All right. Commission members, has any of this made it any easier? Commissioner Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, it has not. And I really resonate with, this is where I'm trying to thread this needle, is I resonate with the part that Commissioner Cookton talked about, not letting our big city visionary kind of plan get in the nuance of that, get in the way of common sense, if you will, or of those are not his words, those are my words. And I just, an area is guided, which in my mind is less restrictive than an area is zoned. And so what I'm wrestling in my head here is, so you've got, and I worry again, I don't worry so much about this property and this specific issue as I worry about the longer term. And so this property is already zoned R1, and so to cut it in half and create two R1 lots is not changing the use of the property. If you think of I guess I think of a guiding more as what we should do versus a zoning, which is what we will do or what we say is okay to do. And so maybe staff can shine a little more light on, but I still wrestle with the idea that the guiding fully restricts us in this, which versus telling us this is what we probably should do.
Mr. Markegard?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Roman, again, I'm not sure I exactly understand the question, but if I think you're putting forward a hypothetical in asking the question, why does the comprehensive plan stop the subdivision from occurring? Is that correct?
Essentially, when the zoning is what controls what can or can't be built somewhere. And there are times we proactively rezone things. In this case, this was guided in a way, but it was not rezoned that way. So it was kind of a good to do versus this will do.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Roman, so to subdivide the lot, the applicant would prepare a plat and submit that. That would come before you, and the first finding you would need to make is that it is consistent with a comprehensive plan. And if the proposal is to subdivide a single-family lot, that would not be consistent with the comprehensive plan as it's currently written, and you would not be able to make that finding. However, with this amendment, that would open the door to being able to make the finding, because the comprehensive plan would specifically create this exception for this type of situation.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. Yeah, I guess one of the bigger thing is, so again, there's the issue I talked about earlier about, modifying the plan on a project by project basis. But I also wonder about if there's some language that might make sense. What I don't want to have have a situation in the future where there is some lots that are guided a certain way, and maybe there's property that already is medium density, and something scraped from there. Maybe you've got a nice townhouse project that's between some other single family homes, and someone wants to scrape it and put up two single family homes instead. So, um, you know, putting another house here does add some density, which is a good thing in this part of town. And so I wonder if any language would be appropriate about that does not lead to a change in zoning, if you will. I don't know if that's what people think about that or not.
Commissioner Cookton?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This doesn't address Commissioner Roman's question, but I just had another thought. So sometimes when I'm reviewing this type of application and I'm torn on it, sometimes I like to think of it in reverse, as if, what if this amendment, what if the code was already written this way? Would I be offended by the way that this code is written? Would this feel off to me, what it should be if I had read this and it just was that way already? Would that be something I would be looking to change? And none of those questions passed the test for me. If this was the way it was already written, I would not be offended by it, or it wouldn't not make sense to me, or it seems like a logical amendment to the code that doesn't stick out, or it's not a if then, or if then type of a thing. It seems like a logical, reasonable amendment to the code. And so, we are at the decision point right now, which makes it difficult to wrestle with, which I can appreciate. But I think if you look at this in hindsight, or if it already were to be that way, I'm not sure I would be offended by it. I think it seems reasonable to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Cookton. I appreciate that. Again, I think more as this discussion has come around, thinking about that and really to meet the comp plan, and I think it was something you said earlier, Commissioner Cookton, is about this larger guidance process. We're not looking, when we do that, at every single parcel, every impact. We're looking at broad trends. And so thinking more about what you said about, is this maybe a reasonable solution? I think, there was not a thought at the time that a lot that was big enough might subdivide or have that option, and that this really creates a potential issue for them. And then going back to the staff report, it doesn't preclude that from becoming medium density in the future. I think I'm leaning towards support of the application as written, along with you, Commissioner Cookton. Thank you. Other commission members? Commissioner Goldsman, I saw a hand for a second. I don't know if you wanted to speak or.
I think this one's a tough one. Thanks, Mr. Chair. One of the things I think about too, we talked about, is that with the current lot being so large, subdividing it is making it more dense than it is now. Now, does it meet the medium density guidance? No, but it is more dense than it is now. It is a good progression in that direction. And like you said before, it doesn't preclude that development from happening. So, looking at the neighborhood that it's in, around, especially on 108th, I think it keeps with the character of the neighborhood. And as we talked about development in the city, it's nice to see someone is, working on that property to make it better and to provide more housing for our residents. So I think I'm in support. I think the proposed amendment is structured in a way that it does kind of focus in. It doesn't open the door too wide. And as we talked about some other properties, it really would be a unique situation that it would allow, and it would be unique. So I think overall I'm in support.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Goldsman. Commissioner Albrecht?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what Commissioner Cookdon said about it being kind of a logical, this makes sense. I think Commissioner Goldsman also said, the other lots in this area were clearly split or likely split at one point. That all makes a lot of sense to me, and I guess I'm in support of it, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that's now another lot. If a developer is deciding to buy and wants to buy out all of these lots, it's now another lot that they have to buy with now a new structure on it to do medium density residential in the future. Now, should we be making our decisions based on something that might happen in 20 to 50 years? I don't think so necessarily. But it kind of sits at the back of my mind thinking like, yeah, it is going to be inevitably more expensive or more prohibitive for a developer than to do medium density residential, whether that be townhomes, whatever it happens to be. But does it work with the character that is existing? Yes. And does it make a lot of sense to do? If I was looking at this property myself, would I consider it? Absolutely. Yeah, I guess part of me is in total support of it because it does make sense and it's an increase in density. And then again, part of me is thinking we guide so that we're prepared to do the things that we'd like to do 25 to 50 years down the line. And yeah, I'll stop there, but that's where my thought.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Albrecht. All good points again. Commissioner Roman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one last thought. I too am trying to figure out how to get to yes, because I again, as others, I don't disagree with this proposal of this specific parcel. And staff can advise on language that we do and don't use in the comprehensive plan. What I want to get away from is creating an entitlement here in this. So I'm wondering, would it be acceptable if the language in the third line, instead of saying is allowed, can the amendment say can be considered?
Staff, this was, I think, a single family home is allowed at below 5 units per acre.
I'm wondering if it's acceptable to say a single family home can be considered at below 5 units per acre, or do we need to be more prescriptive in our plan language?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Roman, I guess what jumps to my mind with that language is when would consideration occur and by whom? So the only approval, because single family homes can just come in for a building permit, there's no approval process. The only approval would be a replatting, which is a pretty low level of discretion. I'm just trying to think of a way that you could maintain that discretion, even though the approvals themselves are a low level of discretion.
Maybe I'm overthinking this. What I don't want to have happen is something that's already medium density of some kind, R3 or higher. We've created a door for that to become lower density. That's all.
Just the opposite of what's being proposed in some ways. Is that what you're asking?
Well, let's say in that same lot there was a 4 or 5 home townhome, and someone wanted to scrape it and subdivide it into 2 lots and rezone it to R1. Well, once they've scraped it, because you can do that without having a plan, and then now we've got single family homes on both sides, and we've created the ability to do that. And maybe I'm overthinking that. Maybe that's a hypothetical that would never happen.
Mr. Markegard?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Roman, just brainstorming a way you might be able to do that. If you added at the end of this sentence, The words provided the net density does not decrease. I wonder if that accomplishes your goal.
Yes. If that's language that I get, maybe I'm the only one on this specific course, but I think that would, for me, that would get to where I want to be. I just don't want us to open up areas where we're decreasing density.
Commissioner Roman, that's a very good point. I was thinking through my head too in these situations where maybe there's an older multifamily development and it gets scraped, and then trying to move something maybe the opposite way. And I'm not exactly sure if we have to put that at the end of this because of the way this is being considered, but I'm not opposed to it to ensure that density does not decrease. I think that's the important thing that we're all wanting to make sure doesn't happen, or at least what I've heard several times. Commissioner Cookton.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just trying to make sure I have all the context for the proposed language here. Are we at all restricting two existing single-family homes having someone buy their neighbor's property because they just want a bigger lot, say they're on the bluff or something, and they want a nice big juicy lot for themselves? Have we just restricted that, or is that not the case?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cookton, I don't believe that's the case because this exception only applies within the medium density residential designation. So those bluff lots, for example, or any lot in the city like that typically would be guided low density residential.
Okay. Does that answer the question for you, Commissioner Cookton?
I think so. Again, just trying to think through this as quickly as possible. So I'm sure there are other locations in our city, however, that are guided medium density residential, which are currently low density residential. So in that scenario, have we precluded someone from being able to buy their, I guess we are, which maybe is okay. But so if a lot is today guided medium density residential, and I have a single family home there, would this preclude me from buying my neighbor's lot so I can put up a swing set or something?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cookton is correct. The city code, or not the city code, but the comprehensive plan would already restrict that scenario. So if you had, for example, in this area, it's guided medium density residential. If somebody wanted to take two lots and combine them, they would not be able to do so today, just due to the way the medium density residential language applies. And by adding the language in red, it would stop that or continue to stop that in the future.
And if they wanted to purchase the property, Mr. Markegard, and keep it as two separate lots, they could continue to do that, correct?
Mr. Chair, that would be an interesting scenario if there was no subdivision and they just purchased two lots. There would be nothing technically to stop you from coming in and getting a demolition permit on one of the lots. But yeah, you would not be able to combine the lots.
But they would not be able to, as you already said, to combine them into one parcel. And if it sat for more than a year, would they be able to rebuild a single family home? I believe that's what I understood, but it wouldn't be decreasing. And as I understood the language as proposed, staff said that that was one of the benefits to a property owner, is if a single family home in a medium density guided area was torn down or blighted and torn down and sat empty for a year, this would allow them to rebuild a single family home. So it really would have negligible impact, is what I'm understanding. Mr. Palermo, am I correct in that?
Yes, you are correct.
All right, thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. That if someone today they could purchase 2 lots and then have that one sit vacant and never have to combine them because there's nothing to, trigger them to do that. So I think that's a good point to point out.
All right. Commissioner Abdi, sorry, I missed your hand there.
No, it's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm leaning supporting the proposed amendment to the plan. The only clarification I would have is for the viewers at home watching this possibly, what does the net density not decreasing actually mean in the context of just what we have been discussing? In a simple term, what does that actually mean?
That's a fair question, Commissioner Abdi. Mr. Palermo or Mr. Markegard, in plain language, what does provide the net density does not change?
Sure. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abdi, the way I would interpret that is that if you calculated units per acre both before and after the change, that the after condition would not be below the before condition in terms of units per acre.
So that would be units per acre would be the designation for density.
Correct.
Okay. Further questions by commissioners? Commissioner Cookton.
Mr. Chair, I'm not 100% sure this is allowed, but may I ask if staff is supportive of that text amendment?
Commissioner Markegard, Mr. Markegard?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cookton, yes, I think that change makes sense. And it's what we had envisioned. I think it would be a very rare scenario that even without the text that would actually take place. But I think it does help to add the text in red.
Thank you.
All right. Commission members, it feels like there's some solidarity around the proposed amendment. If that is the case, I would look for a motion. Commissioner Roman?
Yes. Staff can give us the next slide. That would be
okay.
The actual language.
Yeah, and I think you actually have to change that recommendation a little bit based on the language that I have in the staff report.
Yeah. Here it is. In case PL 2020 or PL 2021-1, I move to recommend approval of a comprehensive plan text amendment as revised in the packet and with the additional language at the end, provided that net density does not decrease, allowing single-family dwellings in the medium density residential designation subject to performance standards. That sounds right.
Thank you. Looking for a second, Commissioner Cookton. Well, looks Commissioner Cookton, are you there?
Yeah, it is seconds.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of comprehensive plan text amendment as revised in the packet, allowing for single-family dwellings and medium-density residential designations subject to performance standards with the addition of the language of provided it does not, provided density does not decrease with the text. Whew. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye by roll call. Commissioner Goldsman.
Aye.
Commissioner Corman.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman.
Aye.
Commissioner Albrecht.
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi.
Aye.
Commissioner Cookton.
Aye.
And I for myself. Motion passes. That will move to the March 8th City Council meeting for discussion and hopefully approval, I guess. So that concludes our regular items for this evening. Our next item is a study item. And for those of the public, that means we will not be taking public comment. Let's see. So item number 3. Mr. Markegard, do you want to start us off on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll bring up a presentation here. All right. So at your last 2 meetings, you've been talking about a meeting format and decided to make a couple changes. One change was to televise all of your study items, and we've implemented that change. Another change was to stop all meetings at 11 p.m. Unless there's a majority vote to continue past 11. We haven't tested that change yet, but it's basically in effect. And then the third thing that you've had a fair amount of discussion on but haven't made the final decision is on whether or not to change all study meetings to regular meetings. So we've fleshed out a few options for you to consider. One option is, I'll call this option 1, would be to have no change at all to the schedule. So that would be 24 regular meetings and 9 study meetings. That's what the Planning Commission has been doing the past several years. Second option would be to change all of the study meetings to regular meetings. And I see a note from Mr. Pease. It is okay to stop the intra-call. This is a study item. So, yeah, option 2 would be to change all study meetings to regular meetings. So that would result in 33 meetings a year. Then third option would be to change all study meetings to regular meetings, but to kind of have a limit on the number of meetings per year. So I threw out 28 meetings a year. This number could be whatever you wanted it to be, but it would be more reflective of what the number of meetings you've had in the past, given that a lot of the study meetings, usually over half, are canceled each year. And then the fourth option would be all regular meetings, but having 24 meetings a year. So just essentially know that you can set that number wherever you think it's appropriate. Staff is recommending option 3 for a couple reasons. First of all, it would add flexibility for applicants by having more regular meetings. There'd be more chances to apply at different dates. Secondly, it would add some flexibility for you in continuing items from one meeting to the next. You'd have more options in terms of which meeting to continue to. Third, it would match the number of meetings you've had in the past, which I believe is important for attracting members to the Planning Commission in the future. Whenever I talk to a prospective citizen that is interested in applying, the first question is always, well, how many meetings are there per year? So that's one factor. And then the fourth factor is option 3 or option 4 would have no negative budget impact. So the taxpayer would not have to pay any more for all of the services that go into the Planning Commission. So just wanted you to have that background and open it up for your discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Markegard. Just as I think about that, the option number 3 that was recommended, has a staff thought about, since they would all be regular meetings, which months might only have 2 meetings and which months might have 3?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, did think about that a little bit. So this is your adopted schedule for 2021. And the study meetings, there are no study meetings in November, December, and May. May is because that is the month of the American Planning Association conference. So historically, the Planning Commission did not have a study meeting on that month. So it would make sense to divide the meetings that were regular. If let's say there were 4 additional regular meetings, it would make sense to distribute them. So you could imagine one in October. And, if you went back 2 months, that would be October, August, June, and April. I think that would work well for 2021, given that we're already, midway through February. So that would make sense for 2021. And then going forward, 2022 and beyond, you may want to distribute that a little bit more.
All right, thank you, Mr. Markegard. And just thinking about this a little bit more, and I don't know if the other commissioners' hands are raised or not, but I was thinking Commissioner Corman might even have some thoughts about the October dates, because I think there's generally conferences, teacher conferences in that time and family vacations, so I'm wondering if that's a good time of year or not to add an additional meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
So, okay, so personally, if you're asking, because I'm a teacher too.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah, personally, yeah, it's, I have been able to kind of manage around that, with, as I talked to my boss about leaving earlier if needed. But yeah, I do remember there were a couple times when I just couldn't attend, but it does not have that big of an impact in my life. I mean, I can manage, or I can miss one at least. I think one.
Yeah. Okay.
Out of the full October, so it doesn't really make a huge difference. It won't affect my life tragically.
Okay.
Thank you for.
And I'm just trying to remember when MEA is, and where that lands, and thinking about families, and again,
Yes.
commissioners, they can, if we schedule it in October, and maybe we can schedule around that. Okay. All right. Commissioner Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Markegard, is there any sort of a rhythm that makes most sense for applicants, whether that's developers or individual? Like, is there some sort of a logical rhythm we should be thinking of to the calendar that would be more conducive to folks who want to or need to bring business before this commission?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Roman, you're thinking about seasonality. Do we have more applications in some parts of the year than others?
Perhaps, yeah. Or is it, I'm making this up, is it just better to go every other Thursday? Or is it better to go the first and third Thursday of the month? Or, I mean, we also want to make sure we overlays in a logical way with the city council. But I just, the predictability, I think, of a schedule is probably easier for the public to be able to consume than our current schedule, which has some, I guess we do have some, sometimes we have a rhythm to it, and sometimes we don't.
Yeah, sometimes it's the first, the second, or the third, or the fourth Thursday.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, looking forward for future years, you could definitely do that. Something like every other Thursday approach that would yield 26, of course. So for holidays, the main time of the year that you could run into problems is November. Thanksgiving is always on a Thursday. This year, Veterans Day was on a Thursday, so both holidays. So like November, we were pretty much we had to pick the 2 dates that we did pick. And December, of course, sometimes Christmas is on a Thursday. So we'd have to work around holidays, but we could do something like every other Thursday. Of course, when we set this up, we always try to match these as well as we can to the city council schedule, just because that allows for the quickest possible flow of applications through the system. So depending on their schedule, that may or may not work precisely to say every other Thursday.
So this year, just to be clear, we're basically working with the days that were already outlined. The date, the schedule, is that correct? I mean, we're not going to go into June and make it at the 24th instead of the 17th. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
But next year we could.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I would advise on the regular meetings not to change the regular meetings for this year unless something extreme came up, just because we have developers that look well out ahead and try to plan out their schedules. So it makes it difficult to make changes on the regular meetings. The study meetings, nobody has made plans around. Those are generally staff-driven items. So I think those would be very safe to move and or cancel or combine.
Okay. All right. I think Commissioner Goldsman, did you have your hand up at some point? I thought.
No, I'm okay.
Oh, okay.
It's a fleeting thought. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, it seems like, and Mr. Marquardt, it seems like you're always, or whoever is working in this calendar, you're always considering specific dates. Like you make reference to the MEA, and I don't remember it any of the years that I've been around that it has been an issue, or that we end up going. It seems like it's, how it's the regular, and then the study session, and then there's the regular, not the following week, but the other week, and it just goes along with the MEA week as well. So it works just fine that October. So it seems like somebody already probably thought about it when putting the schedule.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Corman, you're correct. That third week in October, we've learned to not touch that for a planning commission meeting, because there are always commissioners that have children, and for sure the public, a lot of the public is traveling during that time. So we just avoid that third Thursday in October.
And I think we successfully this year, but last year I think we moved or removed a study meeting because it was in conflict with spring break, if I recall correctly. So that might be maybe another major event. I'm assuming it's I looked at it this year. I don't recall the Bloomington spring break timeframe, but
It's the last week in March.
last full week?
No.
Oh, 29th, 30th, 31st that week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were clear. Okay. All right. Any other questions kind of on schedule, commission members? Or I think where we left off last time is everybody had kind of put their comments in. Of course, the first meeting I was gone. The second meeting, I think Commissioner Corman and was it Commissioner Goldsman were gone. So we wanted to just make sure everybody had their opportunity to speak to the schedule, and when the meetings or how often the meetings might be, if they want to change them. So as staff has put together options 1, 2, 3, 4, what are people's thoughts? Commissioner Cookton?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, prior to this point, I have been partial to option 1, but I am supportive of option 3 as well. I could live with either of those.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can live with option 2, but I certainly, I think option 1 and option 3 make the most sense.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldsman?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think option 3 is nice. I really appreciate that it doesn't cost additional funds, as well as it does allow for a cadence that people can plan to. So I think option 3 is the best out of all of them.
Thank you. Other commission members? I myself am appreciative of option 3 as well. I like the fact that we add additional meetings, regular meetings. My thought was when we limited the hours to 11 o'clock that we really need to make available other times for the public to be able to get their applications heard in a timely fashion. Commissioner Roman?
I can support the option 3 if that's where people are headed. I don't have a problem with option 2, and that it leads to potentially shorter meetings.
Okay.
But I think if we do whatever route we go, I think I would just be an advocate for staff as they develop next year's calendar to have some sort of a predictable, again, if it's the first and third week and then the months where there's 5, maybe that's when you have your 4th one. I don't know, making that up, but something that's a little more predictable both for the public and for us.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Roman. Commissioner Corman?
Yeah, I am good with option 3 as it was presented.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Abdi or Commissioner Albrecht, do you have thoughts yet? Commissioner Albrecht?
I'm fine with option 3.
Okay. Commissioner Abdi? You're on mute. You got caught too.
Thank you.
At least you're not a cat.
I am in support of option 3.
All right. So it looks like all of us are in support of option 3. Mr. Markegard, do you need a motion on that?
Mr. Chair, yes, we would. And I think the motion, I don't have it typed up, but would be to revise your 2021 schedule to, and you'd have to pick the dates here, but to change the study meeting for, pick your 4 dates, to a regular meeting, and to cancel the study meetings on the other dates, and we'd have to fill in those blanks too.
Okay. So the next thing we need to talk about are specific dates. All right, Commissioner Albrecht, you have thoughts?
I do have thoughts about the dates, and staying away from summer, I think would be kind of nice. Only because I think people are taking more long weekends, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to need a long vacation this summer. So I would just, because I think Glenn had mentioned doing August and June, and if we could just stay away from the summer, I think that would be just dandy.
Okay. Commissioner Roman.
Thank you. I don't have a strong opinion on specific dates, but I would lean toward keeping or moving study meetings to any slot where we would have 2 consecutive weeks with no meeting. From a process perspective of if something needs to be continued, I think one time this year we had 4 weeks or so between meetings from December 17th till whatever it was in January. So if we're looking at where to slot in 4 more, I would look at times when you have potentially 2 empty weeks between meetings would be my preference.
Okay. All right. I see at least one of those for sure. Commissioner Corman.
Well, I was looking at summer in May, and there could be room in May for a July one, for a July to be moved. So we have less in the summer, if that was the idea.
Okay. So, all right. So clear themes here are not keeping the one at least in July, maybe August, maybe June, as long as we have consistent without gapping too much. But July is a little, there's 2 weeks between. So we got to think about that a little bit if we follow Commissioner Roman. Commissioner Goldsman.
One thing that I look at for this is, we typically have the national conferences. This year being unique with COVID. I probably could say that most of us won't be traveling. So it opens up that week of, the May 6th. Looking at April, we've got April 22nd, and then the next meeting is not until May 13th. So could we squeeze one in for the first week of May, since the conference, most of us probably won't be able to travel? Just thinking out loud here.
Okay. Mr. Markegard, to add a new date? Not impossible?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, not impossible. You could add a new date.
Okay. So, Commissioner Goldsman, are you suggesting May 6th as a date?
Yes, if that means that we can have August 12th not be a date.
Okay. Well, by my check right now, we would have October 14th and May 6th as 2 dates.
I think February 18th would also be appropriate.
That's canceled, or to have one.
Good question.
Since that is only a week away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair,
We would have had to have advertised.
Yeah, we did already cancel that study meeting.
Okay.
And then the one for March, in terms of making that a regular meeting, that's already too close to do any good for a developer.
Okay.
So I would discourage February or March.
I would support an April 15th as a date. So that would give us 3 if others follow that. And so then we would have to find one more with the remaining months. Commissioner Cookton.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm just kind of keeping score at home here. So I do have 4 dates.
Okay.
Would be May 6th, September 16th, October 14th, and this one's a little questionable, but December 30th. That avoids back-to-backs and gives us 4 more meetings.
And that's another 2-week gap. You're correct, in December 30th.
Yeah.
We also, Commissioner Cookton, did you have July 15th on your list?
Nope, doing Commissioner Goldsman was solid there.
So that would leave a 2-week gap in July. And Mr. Markegard, you had a comment about December 30th?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Cookton, I would have some concerns on December 30th, just because I know that similar to the MEA week, the high volume of both developers and members of the public are traveling. So people might feel like they're not able to participate.
Okay. Now, Mr. Markegard, I know there was a mention of this, that you think there's a lot of applications potentially coming in the April-May timeframe.
Yes.
So,
in
commission
April.
members, I want you to be aware of that. Commissioner Cookton, did you have some more, another comment? Or date?
No, I think, no, unless we added July 15th, which there's been some hesitancy towards, then it seems like that 4th one, we're going to have to make a concession somewhere.
Okay. Commissioner Goldsman.
How about April 15th, May 6th, September 16th, and October 14th?
Okay. So April 15th, May 6th, September 16th, and October 14th.
Yes.
So that would leave the 2-week gap in July, which, as Mr. Commissioner Cookdon indicated, it's we're going to have to make a concession. Either we're going to have to go in one of the summer months, or we're going to have to leave a gap. So,
It does fix the 2-week gap between the April and May timeframe.
yes, correct.
Again, I'll go with whatever people are thinking. I would probably advocate to move the April 15th to July 15th just to close that gap, but I can be convinced either way.
I myself am open to, if people are have a very specific date that they want or don't want. I have no life right now. Other commission members? How about Commissioner Albrecht?
I guess I would sway towards not being in July and having the April and May as proposed by Commissioner Goldsman.
Okay, and would that then also include the September and October dates?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I'm just trying to keep track of this. All right. Other commission members, is there anybody that has, I guess, significant issues with adding April 15th, May 6th, September 16th, and October 14th as our additional regular meetings? Okay. Not seeing any right now. That means the March 18th goes away. Correct? You guys are going to help me out on this. The June 10th goes away. The July 15th. The August 12th. And that's it. So by my count, that's 4. Is this correct, Mr. Markegard? 4 go away, 4 stay?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I think the motion would be to convert the 4 that, well, I guess 1 is a new meeting. So
Okay,
it
so
would
we
be
could-
to have regular meetings on those 4 dates you mentioned, and to delete the meetings on the other 4 dates you mentioned.
Okay, so something along the lines of revise the 2021 schedule to change study meetings on April 15th, September 16th, October 14th to regular meetings, and add May 6th as a meeting date, and to delete March 18th, June 10th, July 15th, and August 12th from the calendar.
Exactly.
All right, would somebody like to make that motion? Maybe not. All right, Commissioner Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just move what you said? I move to modify the 2021 Planning Commission calendar as follows. Canceling study meeting, or removing study meetings from the calendar on February 18th, March 18th, June 10th, July 15th, and August 12th. Converting study meetings on April 15th, September 16th, and October 14th to regular meetings of the commission, and adding an additional meeting on May 6th of the commission.
All right, we have a motion in front of us. Is there a second? Commissioner Goldsman?
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second in front of us to revise the 2021 schedule to change the study, to change 3 study meetings, April 15th, September 16th, and October 14th to regular meetings, and add a regular meeting on May 6th, and to cancel meetings on March 18th, June 10th, July 15th, August 12th, and I'll add the February 18th in for good measure. All those in favor say aye by roll call. Commissioner Goldsman?
Aye.
Commissioner Corman?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Aye.
Commissioner Albrecht?
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi?
Aye.
Commissioner Cookdon?
Aye.
And aye for myself. Motion passes. So now, Mr. Markegard, will that have to be published again? What's the next step for that resolution, or for that motion?
Mr. Chairman, we will update the online schedule, and we'll modify our submittal schedules to match that. I think those are the only steps.
All right, thank you. So I would assume that would take place in the next week to 10 days?
Yes.
All right,
correct.
thank you. All right, commission members, we're on the home stretch. It's 7:42, and the council chambers haven't gotten too cold yet. Item number 4, consider approval of draft planning commission meeting synopsis for January 14th. Commission members, Solberg, Corman, Goldsman, Roman, Albrecht, Abdi, and Cookdon. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Abdi was absent from that meeting. Is there a motion to approve the planning commission synopsis? Commissioner Roman?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Commissioner, is there a second? Commissioner Albrecht?
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second to approve the planning commission synopsis from January 14th, 2021. All those in favor say aye by roll call. Commissioner Goldsman?
Aye.
Commissioner Corman?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Aye.
Commissioner Albrecht?
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi?
Abstain?
All right. And Commissioner Cookdon?
Aye.
And aye for myself. Motion passes. Right, moving on to the next item. Consider approval of draft planning commission synopsis from January 21st planning commission meeting. And all members were present except myself. Is there a motion to approve the planning commission synopsis? Commissioner Albrecht?
I move to approve the draft planning commission meeting synopsis of January 21st, 2021 as presented.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Albrecht, is there a second? Commissioner Goldsman?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the January 21st, 2021 Planning Commission synopsis as presented. All those in favor say aye by roll call. Commissioner Goldsman?
Aye.
Commissioner Corman?
Aye.
Commissioner Roman?
Aye.
Commissioner Albrecht?
Aye.
Commissioner Abdi?
Aye.
Commissioner Cookdon?
Aye.
And I will abstain from that vote. Motion passes. Planning Commission synopsis. And that is the end of our agenda items for tonight, commission members. Our next meeting will be February 25th. Mr. Markegard, what do we have in store for us?
Mr. Chairman, let's check in with Ms. O'Day. I will unmute you now.
Yeah, let me just pull it up here. February 25th. Looks like we have a plat, type 3 plat, and some amendments to the Opportunity Housing Ordinance.
All right.
Just 2 items.
Just 2 items, she says. Well, my timing was off for tonight, and Mr. Markegard's was way off for the discussion tonight. So we'll see how it goes. All right, commission members, have a good and cold weekend, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.